Hello, welcome to the channel Wise Stories. Enjoy watching.
Go trade that duck for the tramp. Who knows, maybe he'll end up marrying you. The surgeon laughed at the shy nurse. 10 years later, as he came to apply for a job at a prestigious clinic. Barbara, why are you even doing this? She heard that question all the time. From those who had known her forever, practically since childhood, and from those who had known her only a few days. From friends, especially her old schoolmate Berta, who had been asking the same thing since Barbara was 18. From men of all ages and professions, from college classmates and professors, from casual acquaintances in equally casual gatherings, even from a fairly well-known artist. And, of course, from her relatives. The variations of her name changed depending on the speaker, the tender, fatherly Barbara, or the overly familiar Barbara from Berta. The tone shifted, surprised, puzzled, occasionally genuinely admiring, but more often skeptical and sarcastic. Still, the meaning of the question never changed. Why did she, Barbara Alvarez, become a nurse, with her looks? The thing was, she wasn't just pretty or cute, she was beautiful. And by the time she turned 18, any suspicions about that had turned into undeniable certainty. She was petite, with a delicate figure and long, graceful legs, but what truly stood out was her face. Symmetrical features, a fine straight nose, elegantly shaped lips, long thick lashes, and voluminous hair, traits not unheard of, though rarer than most girls would like. But in Barbara's case, it all came together in an extraordinary way, making her beauty striking, the kind that made people glance back, shake their heads in wonder, and mutter, "Wow! What a girl!" Nothing over the top, nothing theatrical, and yet, she looked simply wonderful. Strange creatures, people. They always want what they don't have. In winter, when they're brushing away annoying snow and breathing into freezing fingers, they long for blazing summer sun, sun-warmed sand, and the taste of sweet, juicy strawberries. And then, when summer finally arrives, they find themselves dashing toward the shade, craving the coolness of winter air and the tickling sting of fresh snowflakes on their skin. Even a bowl of strawberries loses its charm after the 25th berry, and suddenly, what they really want are mandarins, those bright orange ones with the little black diamonds on the skin, the ones from December, right before the holidays. Even though, just months earlier, they swore they never wanted to see another mandarin again. And so it goes. Curly-haired girls straighten their locks with all their might, while the naturally straight-haired, far more numerous, spend hours curling theirs. Short people dream of being taller, tall people wish they were shorter. The heavy want to slim down, while the slender think they're too thin. A man who buys a white car will eventually start eyeing sleek black ones with envy. That's just human nature, restless and insatiable. Maybe it was because of this dual nature that Barbara, despite her looks, the kind that could have easily opened doors to acting, modeling, or singing, none of which really required talent or voice anymore, didn't want any of it. Besides, she didn't immediately set her sights on nursing. Her family had no connection to medicine or any field requiring lengthy, complex education. Their lives were simple and straightforward. Her mother worked at a grocery store. She greeted regulars warmly, shared gossip, barked at the delivery guys, and, cursing her lack of willpower, sampled all the new sweets and pastries. She paid for it with her full figure. I may not have studied advanced math, but I can count better than most professors, especially when it comes to money. She'd laugh. Her father Diego wasn't an academic either. He drove a massive delivery truck and often brought goods to the very store where his wife worked. He'd cast an approving eye at her pretty face and curvy figure as she accepted the deliveries. With a playful grin and when no one was looking, he'd pinch her side gently and whisper, "Carmelita, stop gobbling those pastries or I'll leave you." The threat never scared Carmelita. They'd been in love and perfectly content with each other for years. They say beautiful children are born to loving parents, and if that's true, then Barbara's beauty was no surprise. She started as a cute little girl, indistinguishable from others, but year by year, nature and time sifted through the children, by height, build, hair volume, skin clarity, nose length, and Barbara Alvarez always came out on top. Eventually, she won the unspoken contest outright, becoming the most beautiful girl in school, and probably in the entire area. Of course, Barbara knew she was attractive. It's hard to ignore when people around you smile for no reason, rush to give up their seat, or when the usually grumpy bus driver suddenly beams at the sight of you, even opening the front door that's typically kept closed. Barbara didn't hesitate to enjoy the perks of her looks. She'd sink into a seat vacated for her in a dentist's line or at the bank with a grateful smile. She'd hop into the front of the bus next to the familiar driver, gladly agreeing that riding up front with a breeze was better than being squashed among passengers. As for the constant stares she attracted, she quickly learned to ignore them. Even the intrusive male gazes stopped bothering her. It was as if she wore an invisible shield that blocked unwanted attention. Diego often shared his parenting philosophies, and it worked well, since Barbara had the kind of personality to match. Just imagine how full of herself she could have been with those looks. Maybe she should be a little full of herself, Carmelita would shake her head. Otherwise, she'll end up doing nothing at all. Oh, come on, Carmelita, don't exaggerate, Barbara's gonna be just fine. Yeah, sure. Carmelita clearly stuck to her own opinion. You'll see, she's going to do something totally wild, and we'll be left speechless. What exactly Carmelita meant by something wild wasn't clear. It probably wasn't a cabaret job in America or applying for Mars flight training. Barbara was cheerful, energetic, full of life, but still grounded and family-oriented. Why her mom feared some unexpected twist of fate remains a mystery. Still, Carmelita knew her only daughter well enough to sense that Barbara wouldn't follow a predictable, straight path after school. She wasn't going to apply to a theater or film academy or send modeling headshots to agencies. Barbara wasn't that kind of girl. And despite her stunning looks, she didn't make a big deal out of them. She didn't obsess over mirrors, makeup, or contouring. She didn't follow trends in nail extensions, lash lifts, or hair treatments. Her friend Claudia summed up Barbara's attitude toward her looks in just 2 words, in her usual blunt style. Dumb luck. And then, behind all that beauty and carefree charm, something new began to emerge. In her final school year, Barbara became serious. More reserved. A little withdrawn. And finally, she stunned her family by announcing, "I'm going to medical school." Wait, isn't that 5 years of study, and then another one? Her father asked. No, it's 6 years. Barbara corrected him. And then yes, one more. Told you. Carmelita turned to her husband. Are you insane? Her friend Claudia practically screamed. Why would you do that? With your looks? Are you stupid or something? What do my looks have to do with it? Barbara shrugged. Are you saying only ugly people should go into teaching or medicine? That's nonsense, Claudia. Don't twist my words. Claudia snapped. You know what I mean. Medicine is just... I don't know, gross. Claudia, I love you, really, but we're about to have a fight, Barbara frowned. Well, what can I expect from you? Claudia sighed wearily. Well, something like this could have been expected, in principle, Carmelita said thoughtfully. If you thought back to little Barbara's games, there were always more plush toys and dolls bandaged and scribbled on with green marker than there were dressed up and sipping tea from toy cups or flying off in a plane made of chairs. Barbara was always treating someone. Their old dachshund often dragged bandages around the house with patience, and Carmelita's sister, who visited from time to time, would play the role of the severely wounded with just as much patience, waiting for the future medical star to wrap and bandage her limbs however she saw fit. Even Diego, relaxing after a hearty dinner, often found himself measuring his pulse and getting treatment too. Well, why not? If everyone else was covered in bandages, why should he be left out? Carmelita often couldn't find some of her household items. White thread would mysteriously disappear, only to be revealed as surgical thread repurposed by their 8-year-old trauma surgeon. Her amber bracelet, taken apart into beads, had been turned into medicine for sick dolls. Yeah, it actually makes sense. Carmelita nodded again, remembering her daughter's favorite games and no longer understanding why anyone was surprised. To her own shock, Barbara didn't pass the entrance exams for medical school. Listen, Barbara, maybe that's a sign? This just isn't your thing. Claudia perked up again. You didn't get in, so what? Maybe it's for the best. Then what is my thing? Barbara asked quietly. What, eating one celery stick and pretending to be a clothes hanger? Playing someone else's roles? Come on, that's definitely not me. And I couldn't do it anyway, looks aren't enough. You need talent, drive, I don't know. Claudia, I don't want to be an actress or a model or whatever. I want to be a doctor, you get that? And besides, she shook herself and lifted her chin, so what if I didn't get in? I will next year. Of course you will, if you want to, Claudia agreed suspiciously quickly. But so you don't waste a whole year, why don't you maybe? I'm not wasting a whole year, Barbara interrupted her firmly. I already applied to nursing school. And by the way, it's a real profession. I'll be taking big steps in the right direction. Barbara studied, worked part-time in a hospital, and dreamed of reapplying to med school. And all the while, she was happy to confirm to herself that she had truly chosen something she loved, something she wanted to dedicate her life to, helping people. And of course, she was the star of the program, the object of envy, admiration, confessions, and heartbreak. But she handled it all calmly and easily, not with cold indifference, but without getting carried away or losing her head or heart. Everything in the life of the beautiful, smart, determined Barbara Alvarez seemed clear and bright. Until fate decided that perhaps it had given this girl too much, and it was time to test her. Just months before graduating, Barbara's father was in a terrible accident. After several days in a coma, he died. And once it happened, it became painfully clear that Diego had held together not just the family's financial well-being, but Carmelita's emotional stability too. She broke down, as if she had been sitting in that truck cabin with him. If Diego had been crushed physically, Carmelita was crushed from the inside. Invisible to outsiders, but no less devastating. Once cheerful, vibrant, and radiant in what Diego fondly called her lush beauty, she faded in a month, not even into a shadow, but a shadow of a shadow. Barbara had to fight to keep her mother clinging to life, and didn't even have time to mourn her father. As it turned out, Diego's funeral was just the beginning. He had been found at fault in the crash. Alongside her parents' apartment, Barbara inherited a massive lawsuit. They had to sell the spacious 3-bedroom apartment to cover debts and move into a tiny 2-bedroom and say goodbye to the dream of med school, at least for the next few years. Right after graduation, Barbara started work as a procedural nurse in a massive city hospital. And again, she had to constantly answer that same worn-out question, asked out loud, to her face, or silently with sideways glances. What's she doing here, with a face like that? Giving enemas? Sorting pills? But within months, those skeptical looks turned into warm and respectful ones. Barbara worked with ease, precision, and speed, and, most surprisingly, with a smile. As if she really was doing what she loved. Even when it was hard to believe, for others, and sometimes even for herself. A year later, a senior surgeon, the assistant head of the department, made a half-joking comment in the break room. I prescribe our Barbara to patients right along with the rest of their treatments. You know, dressings, injections, IVs, and 5 minutes of gazing at Nurse Alvarez twice a day. You laugh, but I'm telling you, recovery rates in her wards are twice as fast. I'm even thinking of writing a scientific article. Something like, the impact of mid-level staff aesthetics on male post-op recovery. The doctors burst out laughing, but they genuinely agreed with the old surgeon. Jokes aside, the patients under Barbara's care may not have been discharged any faster, but they felt different. It was impossible to sit there sulking or lashing out in her presence. No self-pity, no rage at the world. You wanted to seem, or be, strong, stoic, like the illness was just a minor nuisance. You wanted to be a man. To leave the hospital and do something truly worthy. And really, what better motivation to recover? Eyewitnesses claimed that patients in Barbara's ward paid more attention to their appearance. They shaved, brushed their teeth, and frequently asked their wives to bring fresh shirts and pajamas. They smiled in anticipation, waiting for their angelic nurse to walk in. Barbara, listen, the elderly surgeon said, the same one who joked about her therapeutic presence, I've been watching you for a long time. You've got the head and hands of a doctor. You must go back and get your degree. Don't stay stuck here among all these IVs and bed sheets. You hear me? Apply. Study. No excuses. If you don't, I'll drag you there myself. Thank you, Senor Castillo. I will. Barbara smiled gratefully, mentally counting the days until payday and remembering the rent deadline. Then Barbara heard some shocking news. It happened one morning while she and the other nurses were changing in the staff locker room. Daniela, who'd started working after Barbara, was talking excitedly about something she'd just heard. Daniela knew more about hospital gossip than anyone else. Not just what everyone knew, but also the kind of whispered secrets you only heard behind closed doors. She had a reputation for being a gossip, and Barbara had learned to take everything she said with a grain of salt. Still, she liked Daniela's morning chatter. It energized her, helped her wake up and get into the rhythm of the day. So guess what? Starting Monday, we've got a new surgeon joining us, Daniela announced. We're all gonna suffer now. What? Barbara blinked in confusion. What do you mean suffer? Did you switch shifts with someone? Since when is the new doctor bad news? You'll see. Soon, we'll all be running for cover. Because this new doctor is none other than Diego Diaz himself. And? Barbara asked, feeling clueless. Who's Diego Diaz? Oh my God, how do you never know anything? Always buried in paperwork, totally oblivious. Don't you recognize the name Diaz? Well, sure. It's a common name. Sounds familiar. Familiar, right? Daniela snorted. You'll memorize it real quick when you get your first written reprimand signed by it. David Diaz, FYI, is the director of our hospital. And Diego is his one and only golden boy. The director's son. So what? Look, medical dynasties aren't exactly rare. Isn't it great when kids follow in their parents' footsteps? It means they really thought about their career, not just landed there randomly. Medicine shouldn't have random people, I truly believe that. And doctors' kids, well, they're no accident. Ugh, there you go with your philosophical rants. I don't know about other doctors' kids, but Diego Diaz doesn't give a damn about callings or destinies, that's for sure. He's only interested in one thing, taking daddy's place someday. But that's not even the worst of it. He's a massive womanizer. The conversation was clearly veering into the territory of rumors and speculation, something Barbara openly disliked. Daniela, why do you always gossip like that? She shook her head. We haven't even seen the man once, and you're already judging him. Honestly. What nonsense. What nonsense. Daniela bristled. It's not gossip at all. I know for a fact. He did his residency at the Second City Hospital. My friend works in internal medicine there. She could tell you plenty about Diego Diaz's escapades. They cried over him, that staff. A few people even quit because of him. Can you imagine? And you know who quit? The nurses. Why are you telling me this? Barbara snapped. What do I care about his escapades, even if they are true? What do you care? Daniela raised her eyebrows. You should care most of all. I'm just trying to warn you, Barbara. Don't let him get too close. And don't flash that dazzling smile of yours, you never know. Oh, thank you for the warning. I'll be sure to smear soot on my face Monday morning and wear an eye patch, Barbara laughed. Come on, let's get to work. And don't worry about this Diego, Daniela. We'll survive. So what if another Casanova shows up? What matters is that we're getting another doctor. That's what's really important. He's here to work, and the rest, that's just background noise. On Monday, a new man did appear in the department. A broad-shouldered guy around 30, chin lifted proudly. He didn't resemble those young doctors who arrive timidly, nerves making them twitch as they face their first real trials. On the contrary, it felt like he was there to inspect everyone else's work. At least that was the impression he gave, whether he was glancing at new colleagues, eyeing the long hospital corridor, or squinting at the notices pinned on the wall. Barbara saw him for the first time as she rushed past the nurse's station with a stack of patient charts. Standing by the window were Adrian Castillo, her longtime admirer, and a young man she didn't know. "Oh, someone I haven't introduced you to yet," the old doctor exclaimed when he saw her. "Barbara, a moment of your time?" He smiled as she came closer. "Let me introduce you. This is Barbara Alvarez, our pride and joy. And Barbara, meet our new surgeon, Diego Diaz." The old man grinned. "I must say, Dr. Diaz, Barbara is our very best procedural nurse." The man looked at Barbara with keen interest and a touch of surprise. And despite being used to excessive attention since her teens, Barbara shivered under his gaze. It felt like 1,000 tiny snakes slithered across her skin. She felt awkward, uneasy. "Yes, I can see that. Definitely the best thing you've got here," he said suddenly. "A pleasure. Diego Diaz." He extended his hand, and she had no choice but to place her own in his. "Nice to meet you. Excuse me, I have to go." She tugged her hand away, which he held longer than was proper for a handshake, and walked quickly down the hall, feeling his eyes on her back. "He's a total womanizer," Daniela's voice echoed in her head. At first, though, everything seemed normal. Diaz got to know the department, the staff, the procedures. Nothing about his behavior hinted at leveraging family ties or making inappropriate advances. Seems like a decent guy. Daniela really does love to talk nonsense. A few days later, Barbara stepped into the doctor's lounge looking for someone. The large room, filled with several desks, was empty except for Diego, lounging in a chair. When he saw her, he sat up straight and stood quickly, taking a few steps toward her. "Barbara, right? Come in for a moment, if you don't mind." He smiled. She had to admit, he was striking. During their first meeting, she hadn't really looked at his face, distracted as she was by discomfort, nerves, and trying to remember where she'd left her only pair of gloves. Now, under normal lighting, she saw him clearly. His slightly squinted brown eyes watched her intently. Nose, chin, jaw, all proportionate, even handsome. And yet something felt off. Then it hit her, the tan. Smooth, deep, clearly not from around here. But more than that, his face was too clean, too fresh. In her time at the hospital, Barbara had grown used to a very different kind of doctor's face, pale, gaunt, with pillow marks from being yanked out of bed for emergencies, red eyes, stubble from 24-hour shifts. That was the face of a doctor working in an understaffed department of a big city hospital. But Diego looked like he hadn't known exhaustion in his life. His very appearance seemed to reject the idea of fatigue. "Barbara, we haven't had the chance to properly get to know each other yet, and honestly, I'd really like to," he said. "Oh, I think we're already acquainted, Senor Diaz. We just work with different patients, so we don't often cross paths." She hesitated. "Exactly, we don't cross paths, and that's unfortunate," he nodded with a smile. "I plan to change that. But not over patients, forget them. Why have extra witnesses? Let's meet somewhere normal. As soon as possible. Like, tonight?" "No, absolutely not." Barbara was so taken aback by his arrogance that she didn't even blush. "I'm sorry, Senor Diaz. Thank you for the invitation, but I can't." "All right," he shrugged. "I'll wait till tomorrow. Though really, why put off until tomorrow what we could enjoy today? And then repeat tomorrow if we like it?" If she'd had any illusions about him, they shattered completely after that last line, and the clingy, insolent look he gave her. Thank you again, but I'm not interested in offers like that, she said firmly, icily. But we're not finished talking, Barbara, he replied. I understand, post-shift fatigue, bad mood, women's moods. It's all understandable. Forgivable. Goodbye, she said flatly and left the lounge. All day, her thoughts kept returning to that awful conversation. Wow, we've got ourselves a conqueror. Looks like everything Daniela said was true. Well, I'd better avoid this creep as much as I can. But that turned out to be easier said than done. In a rush that evening, Barbara darted toward the crosswalk, not paying much attention, and froze in shock. A large black car screeched to a halt just steps away. The window rolled down. Diego smiled at her from the driver's seat. Hop in, lovely Barbara. I'm not mad at you at all. I'd be honored to take you home in your personal car. Thanks, but I already have a personal bus. It's more convenient. She waved him off and ran around the massive SUV blocking the crosswalk, heading to her stop. Why are you running away from me, lovely Barbara? She heard him say the next day. Listen, Senor Diaz. She turned to him firmly. I'm flattered by your attention, truly. But you're wasting your time on me. I never waste my time, especially not mine, he replied smoothly. You must be one of those hard-to-get types. That's even better. I like a challenge. Fortresses may look unbreakable, but they all fall eventually, along with the princesses inside. Well, I'm no princess. And you, to be honest, don't look much like a noble knight. More like a bandit. She turned and walked off, feeling his sticky stare on her back, again. For the next few days, Diaz didn't speak to her. Just gave a nod in passing. Looks like he got the message. Finally gave up, Barbara sighed with relief. But, as it turned out, she was completely wrong. That night, they were on duty together. Diaz quickly finished his rounds and settled down in the doctor's lounge with his phone. Senor Diaz, excuse me, Barbara peeked into the dimly lit room. I think there might be some sort of mistake. Here, in the orders for Garcia, she held out the patient's chart. And what exactly don't you like about it? By the way, I wasn't aware that nursing staff had the authority to monitor doctors' decisions, Diaz smirked. Oh no, I wasn't trying to question you at all, Barbara said, flustered. It's just that Garcia has type 3 pancreatogenic diabetes, and this says I should give him an antibiotic injection. But that can't be right. It could cause a reaction, complications, maybe even a hyperglycemic coma. Unbelievable. Not only is she pretty, she's smart too. Don't you think that's a bit much for one modest little nurse? He was focused and intent, eyes fixed on her. Senor Diaz, That's enough. Give me the chart and go. I'll check everything, Diaz said firmly. Barbara sat in the nurse's lounge, scolding herself. Why did I open my mouth? Who do I think I am? What, I know better than the attending doctor now. But then she pictured Garcia from room 5, a thin, kind man with soft blue eyes. He would shyly offer her a bright tangerine or a crisp apple, silently begging her not to refuse his humble gifts. Ah, here you are. The door to the lounge opened. Diaz entered and promptly closed it behind him. Still running away from me? Well, let's keep playing. I have to say, Barbara, ever since I saw you, medicine's taken on an entirely new color. Believe it or not, I even enjoy coming to work now. He checked that the door was firmly shut, then took a few steps toward her. Barbara jumped up from the small couch and backed up against the wall. You know, darling, I have to admit, I'm just crazy about you. I hardly recognize myself, Diaz muttered. He rushed forward, grabbed her by the shoulders. Barbara twisted free and slapped him hard across the face. The blow landed so forcefully that Diaz's head snapped sideways like a rag doll's. Get out of here now, or I'll call security, she said in a voice tight with tension. And don't you dare come near me again. Well then, he raised a hand and rubbed his reddened cheek. You'll regret this, Nurse Barbara Alvarez. She didn't see Diaz again that night. The rest of the shift passed quietly, and in the morning, Barbara handed over the charts and slipped out of the department. The next day she arrived at work as usual and began changing into her uniform, but something felt off. People greeted her awkwardly, avoided eye contact, cut conversations short, and made quick exits from the lounge. Daniela, did something happen? Everyone's acting weird today, Barbara finally asked. You really haven't heard? Haven't seen the notice? Mumbled Daniela, blushing. What notice? What's going on? Can you please explain already? Barbara snapped. You should go see for yourself. It's on the bulletin board, where all the announcements go. Honestly, I can't even explain it to myself, let alone to you. A few minutes later, visibly shaken, Barbara knocked on the department head's door. Senora Gonzalez, her voice trembled with hurt and disbelief. Why am I being reassigned as a janitor? Please, sit down, Barbara, the head nurse looked up. Yes, you've been reassigned to janitorial duties, at least temporarily. It's a disciplinary measure based on a report submitted by one of the department's physicians. You committed, or almost committed, a serious and dangerous error that could have had terrible consequences. That's why you've been removed from your current post. One of the physicians, that would be Diego Diaz, right? Barbara was ready to cry, but she held herself together. And what exactly is the error I'm being accused of? You nearly administered antibiotics to a patient with advanced diabetes. Do you realize that could have triggered hyperglycemia? Me? But that's not true. Her voice caught. The injustice, the betrayal, it was too much. She couldn't get the words out. But when she looked up at Senora Gonzalez, she realized she didn't need to say anything. Barbara, listen, the department head, an older woman with silver hair and deep lines on her face, removed her glasses, placed them on the desk, and massaged the bridge of her nose. In that moment, despite her own turmoil, Barbara was overcome with a sudden wave of pity for the exhausted, aging woman who seemed to carry the weight of her whole life on her shoulders. Barbara, I've known Diego Diaz since he was a child, through his school, his training, his internship. Yes, I know him well enough to believe you over the report he drafted. I believe you, Barbara. I know you probably did nothing wrong, but I can't help you. Please understand. I've got 6 months till retirement. I just want to finish quietly, get my honorable service title, and finally get some sleep for once in my life. That's all I want. She swallowed with difficulty, looked away, and quickly stood up, as if to shield herself from Barbara. Then she continued more firmly. Barbara, I truly sympathize with you. But I will not go to war with the hospital director over you. I'm sorry. I don't have the strength. And besides, it wouldn't matter. My advice? Leave. With your experience, you'll find work at another hospital easily, unless he decides to go after you. Just resign. But why should I? Tears blurred her vision, making everything look like a foggy watercolor. I don't want to. I don't want to leave. It's wrong. It's unfair. I'm not going anywhere. Barbara angrily wiped her cheeks, smearing the tears that had already started to fall. Then he'll keep coming after you, the head nurse sighed. You know he won't leave you alone, child. He's always been like this. Diego Diaz is spiteful, vindictive, and spoiled. And the worst part? He's actually a pretty good surgeon, technically, at least. But he's got no soul. Neither he nor his father ever did. You won't beat him if you stay here. And he's not worth it. Do you hear me? On shaky legs, Barbara left the office and sat down on a nearby bench. Well? What did she say? Come on, it's got to be some mistake, right? What's this serious violation thing? You? Negligence? Barbara, say something. Worried nurses from the department gathered around her, tugging at her sleeves, trying to read her expression. What's this crowd during work hours? I guess all our patients are miraculously cured. Or maybe the few who remain have already received every treatment and the staff just has nothing better to do. Diaz stood a few steps away, looking at the group of women with smug amusement. Everyone fell silent, avoiding his eyes, fidgeting with their uniforms, then quietly dispersed. "Alvarez, do you need a personal invitation?" came his mocking voice, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Or will you finally get to your actual job? Like cleaning bedpans and changing linens. Come on, Alvarez, get moving, the toilets are waiting for you. Or do you think that pretty face means you don't have to lift a finger?" Barbara flinched, then stood up. "I can't take this. It's too humiliating. Of course I have to leave. That's the right thing to do. Just walk out and submit my resignation." The thought pounded in Barbara's head as she walked down the endlessly long hospital corridor. But how? Just give up? Just run away and let him celebrate his victory? Let him go on thinking everything will always go exactly as he wants? Her stubborn nature protested. "And it will go how he wants." "It already has," her reason replied. "Look around you. You're a janitor now. You'll be picking up a mop and a rag and heading off to scrub toilets. And if you won't, then go out the door. And honestly, who told you you're so irreplaceable? No one's going to fight for you. You and your sense of justice, no one needs it. Maybe no one will even remember you." Well, maybe he would. That poor man, he'd be all alone now. And he'd only just started to come alive again, to return from the darkness, to remember something. And Barbara couldn't help but think of the very unusual man who had come into her life just a few days earlier. It had all started with an outburst from Dolores, the normally composed and experienced janitor. "Oh no, absolutely not," she slammed the door and dropped into a chair. "They don't pay me enough to deal with that kind of filth. I'm not about to catch lice because of this." "What happened?" Barbara looked up from her book. "What's going on?" "It's disgusting, that's what. They brought in some homeless guy. A tramp. He's so filthy the whole department needs a full disinfection." "What, you just left him there?" Barbara frowned. "Dolores, this is a hospital. They brought in a sick person. We're supposed to help him. Let him rest and wash himself." "I'm not about to get ringworm," Dolores grumbled. "But hey, if you're feeling so responsible, you go wash him." "Wow," Barbara closed her book and stood. "Where is he?" "Where else?" "In the washroom." "Where else could I put him?" "Not in a room, fleas would be jumping off him left and right." Of course, Dolores was exaggerating. Nothing was jumping off the man lying motionless on the stretcher. But the smell was overwhelming. Heavy, thick, unbearable. Dirt and dried blood coated his arms and face in brownish crusts. His hair was matted and stuck out in all directions. The rags he wore could barely be called clothing. Dear God, how is this even possible today? Barbara thought, horrified, as she pulled on gloves and wrapped herself in a large oilcloth apron. After half an hour of hard work, awkward mumbling, persuasion, and barely suppressed waves of nausea, a thin man of about 30 to 35 lay half-sitting on the stretcher, now covered by a clean sheet. His damp, dark hair clung to his forehead, as if trying to shield him from the world. He looked at Barbara with hollow gray eyes, and wept. Not sobbed, not cried out in hysteria, just let a few large, clear tears roll down his cheeks, washing his already clean face. "I'm sorry," he whispered without looking away from her. "I'm sorry, my angel of light." All right, let's not get carried away with angels just yet," Barbara said firmly. "Let's get you into a room. What's your name?" She asked the simplest question a person could be asked, and then looked at him. Barbara had seen many faces in her hospital years, frightened, pained, hopeful against all odds. She thought she'd seen it all. She was wrong. She had never seen terror like what she now saw in his eyes. I don't know. I don't know my name. I don't remember who I am, where I came from. Nothing. I remember nothing. I'm all alone. Nonsense, Barbara said suddenly. You're not alone. There are people around you. We'll help you. I'll help you. Look, here's my hand. Take it. Come on. There, just like that. Now tell me again you're alone? She brought him to a patient room where Dolores, now ashamed, had quietly prepared everything. All the while, he clung to her hand like a frightened child afraid of being lost in a crowd. Even once on the bed, she had to gently pry her fingers from his grip. You've got quite the grip, she said with a smile, rubbing her sore hand. At least your muscle tone is fine. That means the rest will be too. Yes, it will be, he said, his steel gray eyes locked on hers. They shifted between soft blue and cold metal. Everything will be fine, as long as I see you again. You'll see me, definitely, she smiled. By the way, my name is Barbara. I'll wait for you, Barbara. Only you, he said seriously, like he was making a vow. It made Barbara feel a little awkward. He was acting like a child. All right. You need to rest. The doctor will be in soon to figure out what to do next, she said, and couldn't resist gently touching his cheek with her fingertips. She felt a soft prickle from his stubble. She didn't know why she did it, just a sudden, overwhelming urge. The patient swiftly, surprisingly quickly for someone so weak, caught her wrist and pressed her hand to his dry, feverish lips. And she couldn't look away from those gray eyes glowing in a pale, bruised face. How did he even stay conscious, this nameless man? The elderly doctor wondered. 3 broken ribs, 2 cracked, dislocated shoulder, concussion. They beat him badly. And they knew what they were doing. That's horrible, Barbara whispered. And his head? Amnesia, dear. Hopefully temporary. Nothing to do but wait. He's young, otherwise healthy, oddly enough. Especially given his condition when he came in. Oh, and here's a little mystery for you, Barbara, about your favorite, am I right? The doctor winked at her. He was beaten, filthy, covered in parasites, but perfectly healthy. No cirrhosis, no ulcers, not even a touch of osteochondrosis. None of the usual chronic stuff we see in homeless patients. Internally, he's clean. And on the outside, he could even be considered attractive. What do you think, Barbara? She laughed and waved him off jokingly, but in her heart, she agreed. The mysterious patient pulled her like a magnet. Sometimes she'd just sit beside him as he held her hand with eyes closed, deep in thought. And Barbara would secretly steady his thin face, feeling a strange, irresistible urge to brush his temple with her palm, run her fingers down his cheek, bury her hand in his dark, silky hair. Barbara, remember, you promised you wouldn't leave me alone, he said to her every day. Don't forget your promise. I can't do this without you. What's today's date? He asked a few days later. The 30th, she answered automatically. September 30th, he said, not asked, just stated. Yes. Barbara's eyes lit up. You remembered the month, that's amazing. Adrian Castillo had said memory often returns in bits and pieces. Try more. Can you remember your name? Who you are? Where you're from? What happened to you? Why no one's looking for you? He tensed, eyes shut, exhaled slowly. No. I remember nothing. And, just like always, he reached for her hand, like it was his only tether back to himself, the thread that might lead him to the light. What would happen to him if she just left? Never returned to his room? And what would happen to her if she never saw him again? Oh God, she didn't want to lose him. The revelation hit her so hard she stopped in the middle of the hallway, frozen. Orderly Alvarez, your little stray prince seems about ready to drown in his own royal waters. And here you are, daydreaming instead of bringing him a bedpan, came Diaz's now all too familiar mocking voice. What's the holdup? What if he bursts? Careful, Alvarez, you might lose your future husband. Who knows, maybe he's a real prince and he'll build you a palace. Barbara tilted her head stubbornly and walked toward the room where her nameless patient was lying. Barbara, please, could you call this number for me? He handed her a small scrap of paper with a series of digits written on it. You'll speak to someone named Edgar. Tell him you're calling on behalf of Eduardo Lorenzo. You remembered who you are? Barbara whispered, afraid to believe it, afraid to believe him, or even herself. He gave a slight nod, pressed her hand to his cheek, and closed his eyes. Diego Diaz had always lived simply, confidently, without complicating his existence with questions about what was good or bad. To him, only one thing mattered, what he wanted. He always knew exactly what he wanted now and what he would do next. And for a long time, he almost always got it. Until, one day, he realized he'd gotten the most important thing, his profession, completely wrong. The Diaz family was medical to the core, so it had seemed only natural that Diego would follow that path too. But the further he went, the more it became clear, this wasn't a smooth, paved road, it was a rutted track full of potholes. The kind you could break your nose on. Still, so much time had been spent on his studies that there was nothing to do but bury his disappointment deep, even from himself, and rely on his father. A respected, powerful doctor, Diego's father had recently climbed the ranks to become director of the city's largest hospital, and there were whispers he might soon land a seat in the Ministry of Health. Maybe Adrian would help him land a cushy little job somewhere near the field. After finishing his internship, Diego told his parents he was claiming his right to relax. And relax he did, so much that he nearly ended up in jail. His father bailed him out of serious trouble and dragged him into the hospital. Enough with the nonsense. I will not let you disgrace my name, do you hear me, you little fool? Put on the coat. Pick up the scalpel, thank God nature gave you the hands for it. And work, you hear me? Until you've got at least 10 years of experience under your belt, don't even think about career moves. If you don't like it, fine. Walk out that door and go do whatever you want, but don't expect a single thing from me. Diego knew his father well. The old man was stubborn, principled, and meant every word. So Diego returned to work. He looked around the hospital in boredom and gloom, and then something made him perk up. Walking down the corridor was the most enchanting creature he'd seen in years. A nurse, young and lovely. A little plain, maybe not glamorous, but something about her stirred a sweet ache under his ribs. Suddenly, working at the hospital didn't seem so awful. But the girl turned out to be one of those rare things, genuinely untouchable. Not playing hard to get. Truly determined. And then she pointed out a serious mistake that had almost killed the patient and slapped him across the face. He had to act. The girl was reassigned as a janitor. Probably where she belonged, anyway, especially given her connection with that memory-lost tramp. Still, he did regret it, in a way. That cute girl, what was her name again? Barbara, right? It was a shame. He might have taken it too far. Maybe he even owed her an apology. But she left the department soon after, disappeared at almost the exact same time as that homeless guy. Supposedly, 2 big SUVs had come to collect him. But who listens to gossipy nurses anyway? Probably all nonsense, some story they made up with shiny cars and important men in suits. And besides, he had his own problems. His life collapsed. His father was dismissed. All those glittering prospects vanished in smoke. And Diego actually had to work now, because, frankly, he didn't know how to do anything else. 10 years passed quietly. Strangely. No real friends, no true love. Not even ambition, dulled by fatigue. His life became so empty, he began to love his job out of sheer desperation. It was the only real thing left. And he became a damn good surgeon, one his father would have been proud of. Hey, Diaz, an old colleague clapped him on the shoulder, did you hear? A new clinic just opened in the city. It's like a dream, state-of-the-art equipment, top-level staff, proper salaries. They're performing procedures that are next level. And they're hiring. Looking for a surgeon. You should apply. With your experience, who better? At home, Diego examined his worn-out winter jacket, so faded it now looked like fall wear, and decided to take his chances. From the first glance, it was obvious this new clinic was something else entirely. Wow, this is how people should be working, he thought, a little enviously. And here I am still begging for a new aspirator for the ore. This way, Senor Diaz. The director is expecting you, smiled the lovely secretary. At the desk sat a beautiful young woman in a crisp white coat. She looked up and met his eyes. Hello, Senor Diaz, she said. So, here we are. Just like you once wanted. No witnesses, she added with a sly smile. His heart skipped a beat, then pounded. Barbara. Barbara. I mean, Senora Alvarez, he stammered. Janitor Alvarez, she smiled. That's what you used to call me, remember? Listen, Barbara, he forced the lump in his throat down. I owe you an apology. I'm sorry, if you can forgive me. And even if you can't, forgive me anyway. Life has punished me more than enough, believe me. After what I did, I lost everything, except my work. Please accept my congratulations. You became a doctor. And you have an incredible clinic. May I ask, how? Do you remember that amnesiac vagrant? She smiled. As you suspected, he was a prince, can you believe it? And since then, I've loved him, and he's loved me. In a few words, she told him the incredible story. Eduardo Lorenzo had been a wealthy businessman. He had a large company, a country estate, and bank accounts, but also one strange habit, to disappear alone from time to time, just to disconnect. No one questioned it anymore. But this time, Eduardo had been thrown from his own car, robbed, and beaten unconscious. He'd ended up in an abandoned house, struggling for air with a broken ribcage. Eventually, he crawled toward civilization, wrapped in whatever rags he could find. He was found, taken to the hospital, and there, as he later told it, a beautiful angel took his hand, pulled him out of the darkness, saved him, and, unbelievably, loved him. That angel, as you've probably guessed, was me, smiled Barbara. And Eduardo didn't build me a palace. He built me this clinic. Well, that's wonderful, Senora Alvarez. Truly wonderful. And poetic justice, even if it sounds like a fairy tale. Diego cleared his throat, rubbed his palms together, and stood. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. I assume the only thing I'm qualified to do here is carry bedpans. If it were me, that's all I'd offer someone like me. Barbara looked at him thoughtfully. Then, as if reaching a decision, she stood, walked around the desk, and extended her hand. But I'm not you, Senor Diaz. I'm me. So, if you're willing, you're hired. Let's get to work. She looked him in the face. Tired. Worn from a night shift. Pale. Red-eyed. A faint stubble on his cheeks. The face of a real doctor.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.